Not all sales are taxed the same way. Some carry GST at the full rate, some are taxed at zero, and some fall outside the GST system entirely. Each one needs to be recorded differently and treated differently when it comes time to file. In LUCA, you can create as many GST codes as your business requires. The system is flexible. You define the name, the codes, the rates, and how they apply. This video walks through one common GST setup using 3 codes: standard rated SR, zero rated ZR, and Exempt Supply ES, as a practical example of how to get started. Your own configuration may look different, and that's perfectly fine. Before opening the system, let's take a moment to understand what each of these 3 codes represents and why they're a useful starting point. Standard rated applies when GST is charged at the standard rate. The tax is collected from the customer and remitted to the authority. Input tax on related costs can be claimed. Zero rated still counts as a taxable supply, but the rate is zero. Common for exports and certain cross-border services. No GST is collected, but the transaction must still be reported. Input tax claims remain available. Exempt supply is outside the GST system. No GST is charged, and input tax on related costs generally cannot be claimed. Residential rentals and certain financial services fall into this category. The distinction matters because each type affects your GST liability, your input tax entitlement, and how your return is prepared. LUCA keeps them separate and lets you build out as many additional codes as your situation requires. Now let's move into the LUCA system and create the GST codes. Go to Setup in the left sidebar, then select GST. This is where all your GST codes are created and managed. You can add as many as you need. Click Add to create a new GST code. Now let's fill in the fields step by step. In the name field, type Standard Rated Supply. This is just the full label stored in the system. Next, in display name, enter SR. This is the short code you'll actually see when selecting GST on transactions, so keep it simple and recognizable. Now set the rate to 9% or your applicable standard GST rate. For type, select Sale. This ensures it shows up in your sales modules like invoices and receipts. Once everything looks good, go ahead and click Save. And that's it. Your SR code is now ready to use. Now that you've seen the full process, we'll quickly add the remaining 2 codes. For this example, all 3 codes are now in the system: SR, ZR, and ES, each correctly configured and available for use on transactions. In practice, your list may include more, depending on your business needs. All right, let's walk through how to apply GST codes on a sales invoice. First, from the sidebar, navigate to the Income menu and select Sales Invoice. Then, click Add New to create a new invoice. Go ahead and select your customer, then add a line item. In this example, we're using consulting service for $1,000. Now, if you look at the right sidebar, you'll notice the GST type is already set to per item by default. This means GST will be calculated individually for each line item, which is really handy when you have different GST treatments within the same invoice. Next, on the line item row, you'll notice the GST column already defaults to SR, standard rated based on your GST configuration. You'll see the GST amount gets calculated automatically. Nice and straightforward. Once everything looks good, go ahead and click Save. LUCA will process the invoice and bring you back to the sales invoice listing page. From here, find your invoice, open the 3-dot action menu on the right, and select Mark as Sent. This posts the invoice to the ledger. Now the good news is, the workflow stays exactly the same for other GST treatments. The only thing that changes is the GST code you select on the line item. Let's quickly look at a couple more examples. First, let's try ZR, zero rated. Create the invoice the same way, but this time select ZR on the line item. Notice that the GST amount comes up as 0, but the transaction is still recorded and reportable. Next, let's do one more with ES, Exempt Supply. Same process again, just select ES this time. No GST is charged here either, but just like ZR, this transaction is still included for GST reporting purposes. So whether you're using SR, ZR, ES, or any other configured GST code, the invoice process itself stays consistent throughout. Before we jump into the reports, let's make sure all our invoices are posted to the ledger. Find your zero-rated invoice, open the 3-dot action menu, and select Mark as Sent, just like we did earlier. and then do the same for the Exempt Supply invoice. Open the menu, hit Mark as Sent. Great! Now all 3 invoices are posted and ready to show up in the reports. All right, let's go check them out. Head over to Reports in the sidebar and select Tax Details. Here you'll see your transactions grouped by supply type: Standard Rated Supply, Zero Rated Supply, and Exempt Supply, each in their own section. For each entry, you'll find the transaction date, customer name, document reference, taxable amount, and tax amount, all clearly laid out. Standard rated transactions will show the GST collected. Zero rated and exempt supply transactions will show zero tax. But here's the thing, they're still included in the report because they still need to be declared during GST filing. And at the bottom, you'll see the net tax owing figure. This gives you your overall GST position for the period, so you can see straight away whether GST is payable or refundable. So whether it's standard rated, zero rated, or exempt supply, every transaction is properly tracked and accounted for all in one place. And that's really the beauty of how LUCA handles GST. It's flexible enough to work the way your business actually does, however many codes you need, at whatever rates apply. In this video, we covered 3 GST codes. S are for your standard taxable sales, Z are for zero-rated supplies that still need to be reported, and ES for exempt supply transactions. But honestly, the same process applies to any GST code you set up. When you get the configuration right from the start, everything else just falls into place. Your invoices are coded correctly as you go, your reports are accurate when you need them, and when it's time to file, everything is already there. Nothing missing, nothing to chase down. That's what clean GST compliance looks like in practice. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.